This is where the autism of the internet shines here. Now they're looking at hands, elbows, Achilles. You know, what type of legs do these kids have? She's like literally touching glutes. Again, this is a proven coach. She knows exactly what she's doing. This is a child, and this child has like sick erectors ready for the squat. And watch how good the squat is. Look at this. This woman is just like, you're either gonna weightlift or I don't care about you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be talking about internet weightlifting's favorite thing, and that is the Chinese weightlifting team. There's a couple pieces of content here that I find to be super interesting, and that is the selection process for the Chinese Olympic weightlifting team, and at its very beginning with selecting kids. I think the internet, we love to talk about why China is so good at weightlifting, and we love to speculate it. And what's constantly brought up is the selection process with youth. And if we were to contrast that with the selection process with youth in the United States, a lot of the physical traits that people are looking for in China, if we had found those in the States, it's likely that those kids would be playing football, basketball, baseball, and popular American sports. But first, today's video is sponsored by Barbell Apparel. Guys, go check out all of my kick-ass swag there. This shirt that I'm wearing and this hat that I'm wearing, you can get at barbellapparel.com/Telander, along with my favorite pieces of equipment. Guys, get in there, get yourself some swag, barbellapparel.com/Telander. All right, let's get to this video. This thing's cool as hell. It's called Scouting Chinese Weightlifters Part 1, and this is by an American weightlifter. Her name is Hillary Tran. Hoping to break the internet with this one. Jokes aside, getting BTS of the genesis of future champions was the coolest day of my life, and I'm so happy to share it with the world. So humbling to see where they start and where they end up on podiums. Part 2, I'll show the backgrounds and why parents are against weightlifting. And for your information, this woman is the coach that found Dang Wei and Shang Ji. So here we go. So it looks like they're in a school. Step 1, go to class and tell everyone to stand up. Typically 3rd to 5th grade. Shout, who's the fastest? Who runs the longest? Who's the strongest? Whoa. Okay, so usually the teachers or the classmates are going to point to the strongest or fastest person in the room. Round them up for a prelim screen. So I want you guys to guess as to what they're going to do first. Comment right now. I'll give you guys some time. What's the first thing that we're going to look for in an Olympic weightlifter for a kid? Boom. Broad jump. Broad jump and triple jump. These are both very important exercises to like understand coordination in kids, and then explosive power. Jumping vertically obviously is right there neck and neck with it, but I think what is telling about the broad jump is the fact that there's much more proprioception necessary, and you have to like coordinate what you do with your legs, and you have to land. Like the landing becomes difficult. There is an expression of athleticism in the broad jump and the triple jump that you do not get with the vertical jump. Now, the vertical jump is important in weightlifting because it is a test of power in the legs. Flat out. That's it. And that is what the sport is about. So broad jump and triple jump, guys. One. Yep. That was pretty good. Okay, so you could tell with that girl, and not to, single out a child, but you're like, okay, no, that was it. And I was thinking about this, sometimes kids develop differently in, different phases. And I like to think of this example, and I could be wrong about it, but like the movie Whiplash, Miles Teller's character. Like, if there was a prelim screen for the best jazz drummers of all time, like, would he pass that at age 6, 7, 8 years old? And my thing is, like, maybe not. And yet he's supposed to go on and be, the next, in the movie, they talk about Charlie Parker, even though Charlie Parker is not a drummer. But, the relationship with Charlie Parker and the instructor, and they're trying to build that same relationship with Miles Teller's character. That comes from the torment and the training and the changes that go on in his brain. Now, I'm wondering if you do this in China and you just take that girl and send her off immediately, do you miss out on that opportunity? Is it even worth it? Okay, this is where my brain goes, folks. I'm like weird like that. Anyways, okay, so that kid's a top pick right there. And if we look at that broad jump again, you can see the coordination it takes to then bring your legs forward and catch yourself. This is why this is a very legitimate test. Triple jump. Falls straight on her knees. Okay, so now we're getting super interesting. Now this is where the autism of the internet shines here, okay? Step 3, genetic dispositions and coordination. She says she's measuring them. She's touching them. Hands. What do your hands look like? Hands and elbows. So if we look at the sport of weightlifting, and this is how I love to think about it, it is a sport of extremes and buying into those extremes. It's gamifying the cues, gamifying the small things to which the entirety of the lift leans on. So if we look at the split jerk or the jerk, just getting the bar from the shoulder to overhead, the quicker you can lock your elbows, the shorter distance that your elbows have, or that your hands have to travel, or the bar has to travel to lock out. Those are the things that can be determined sometimes by somebody's mobility, but also their joints, how their joints lock out. Like if you guys look at mine, see how my elbow, oh, that's actually not bad. But like it's not the best lockout. If I like turn, it kind of is. But you know, if you saw a kid with shorter arms and on one of those lockouts that are super strong, you'd go, okay, that's pretty good genetic disposition for the lockout. But that's one minor part. But again, the sport of weightlifting a lot of the sport weighs on these tiny little things. So yeah, now they're looking at hands, elbows, Achilles. You know, what type of legs do these kids have? She's like literally touching glutes. Again, this is not, if your brain is going to that weird shit, you're an idiot. This is a proven coach. She knows exactly what she's doing. She knows exactly what to select for. And now she gets the kids in the front rack. So the front rack is wildly important because your ability to maintain an upright posture with your elbows up and sink your hips down, it actually determines not just your hip, knees, and ankle mobility, but your ability to really have this proprioceptive connection to your erectors in your low back and your upper back. So it's your flexibility up here that allows you then to contract here and then be able to move your legs. Again, another aspect of what weightlifting really is about. And you'll see this is a child, and this child has like sick erectors ready for the squat. And watch how good the squat is. Look at this. Then we have the overhead squat. So like something like this, like, is that the best overhead squat? Is that a good, bad? You know, these are really small things. And if we're going to eliminate a bunch of kids, which they have to do, they could be missing out on a champion, but it's unlikely. Then now that they've selected the group that they want, they ask their interest in becoming an athlete. So usually it's the parents that need convincing. And this is just going to be across the board in every endeavor. You know, there's going to be a coach, a recruiter, someone trying to convince parents. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a really cool process. And the number one thing I was thinking during this was like, if I had seen any of those traits, I'd be like, no. They're not being weightlifters. They're going to come with me and be on the football team. They're going to be on the, play rugby. They're going to wrestle. Holy shit. I'd want one of these kids to be a wrestler. Or like they could do gymnastics, like testing a broad jump at very young, testing your coordination in the front squat and the overhead squat as well, looking at limb lengths, like they will stack up pretty well. And again, these are kids. They're not developed adults. So yeah, you develop a kid into a weightlifter and they don't look like gymnasts, right? But a lot of these dispositions are the same that I would choose if I was choosing gymnasts and certain other sports that I mentioned prior. So what I like to think about is like, oh shit, this is actually kind of the wild, wild west. It's not like, hey, the national governing body for weightlifting in China goes here or goes here. And they don't just go, oh, well, you're going to play. And I know there are other systems like this. They're going to be like, you're going to wrestle, you're going to do weightlifting, you're going to play badminton, whatever, go down the line. This woman is just like, you're either going to weightlift or I don't care about you. I know that Alexei Tarakti, that's what he told me. They would have a selection process, but the selection process was selecting where you were going to do your sport. And then if you did well, you would be selected further and further. Does that make sense? So it's like, this person's just like weightlifter or not. And so I think it's up to the national governing body to get in there and go get it taken care of. Really interesting stuff, guys. Okay, Scouting Chinese Weightlifters Part 2.
So many of the weightlifters are scattered from rural areas like this, where there's low infrastructure, like no traffic lights. Animals can still roam around the streets freely, and the towns are really supported mainly from farming or transportation. And as you can tell, housing isn't the most advanced, and even equipment that they use is still really old and janky. The parents are usually out in the bigger cities doing blue-collar work, and so the kids usually live with the grandparents. And as you can tell from the fashion, that there's still holes in their clothing. There's a lot of hand-me-downs. And what actually really shocked me was most of them didn't know what year they were born. And
okay, we're going to stop it right there. Most of them didn't know what year they were born. I distinctly remember there was like some pretty serious issues with gymnasts or divers. Maybe it was Chinese gymnasts or divers where they were too young, like literally like they were like 10 years old and you're not allowed to be in the Olympics at that age or something. Can you guys comment that? I don't want to look it up right now, but I think that's kind of a big thing in China.
The schools that they come from don't have sports programs. So imagine never being able to try out for a basketball, volleyball, or soccer team in your life. And your only ticket to becoming an athlete is actually to be chosen. And so the schools are actually really supportive of it. Here we are talking to the principals, and here coach is also talking with the teachers about how to get the parents on board. And the controversy is really because the parents believe that weightlifting is extremely strenuous sport, and so they'd rather see their kids be swimming or playing a small ball sport like ping pong than to live a quote-unquote hard life like this.
Weightlifting is a very interesting sport. It doesn't matter how many of you out there, because if you've been watching this channel for a long time, like you understand that weightlifting it's a beautiful sport, and that it's not about this like kind of like being a bodybuilder, or it is just as much an Olympic sport as anything else. And I think people look at it because of movies and jack dudes and things like that they think that it is something other than that. And yeah, physically strenuous, like true, it might be the most of any Olympic sport, but like I've been around a lot of swimmers when I was working at Texas A&M and Northwestern, and I grew up in a swimming household. Like, that sport is brutal. That sport is seriously brutal. Okay, so now what? Like track and field, like distance running? I mean, pretty much at the top end, every sport is physically and just so mentally demanding. So, if I don't, it carries this stigma, and that's why people have to convince their parents. So yeah, guys, this is super interesting. I think from this point they get selected and they just, begin kind of the schooling process on physical training, keep it light, keep it, teach the kids the movements, but also have them play games, get their GPP going. And then as you saw in there, within a few years, these kids are lifting heavy, which, certain schools don't agree with, but that's kind of neither here nor there. I think after that, they get selected to go to provincial training camps. Maybe that's like where they go from this, provincial. And then from the provincial training camps, there are, there's Chinese nationals, like competitions, Chinese nationals. But I think before any of that, they know who the top dogs of each province is, and then they can kind of formulate some sort of national team off of that. And they'll have plenty of alternates. They'll have tons of people that they can pull from. It's almost as if like Liu Xiaojun drops out. Oh, doesn't matter. We got, so we got 3 or 4 guys who are like capable of breaking world records behind them. Li Dayin, all of these guys can just pop right up. And that's because of the system that they have in place and because of how massive China is. And that they're going to these rural areas in each one of them, and they don't have to really compete with other big time sports because they don't exist there. Like trying to get a kid who's like the best broad jumper, the best sprinter to commit to only weightlifting is an impossible ask in America. It's an absolutely impossible ask. And I think that is really just the biggest difference maker right there. Anyways, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.